Before we dive into this brutal story, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us bring more action-packed stories to life. Now, imagine a place where training isn't about preparation, but about death itself. A secret war game hidden deep within the jungle, designed not to teach men how to fight, but to weed out the weak and leave only killers behind. In this jungle, there are no rules, no mercy, no second chances. And the blood spilled here is all too real. Far from the eyes of the world, a dense and unforgiving jungle becomes the stage for something darker than war itself. To the outside world, it looks like untouched wilderness, birds, rivers, trees as far as the eye can see. But inside, hidden within the shadows, is a secret compound where men are stripped of fear, stripped of humanity, and turned into weapons. Here, the jungle doesn't just breathe life, it swallows it whole. Every branch hides a trap. Every shadow could be death waiting, and for those who step inside, there is only one way out to survive longer than the others. Far from the eyes of the world, a dense and unforgiving jungle becomes the stage for something darker than war itself. To the outside world, it looks like untouched wilderness, birds, rivers, trees as far as the eye can see. But inside, hidden within the shadows, is a secret compound where men are stripped of fear, stripped of humanity, and turned into weapons. Here, the jungle doesn't just breathe life, it swallows it whole. Every branch hides a trap, every shadow could be death waiting. And for those who step inside, there is only one way out, to survive longer than the others. They came from every corner of the world, ex-soldiers, criminals, men with nothing left to lose. Each one lured by the same promise, fortune beyond imagination. But when they arrived, the smiles faded. The so-called training ground was not a place for honor or discipline. It was a graveyard waiting to be filled. Some wanted the money, some wanted the thrill, but none of them truly understood what they had walked into. Because here, glory doesn't come from medals, it comes from blood spilled on the jungle floor. Then came the man who ruled it all, Colonel Hogan. His voice thundered through the camp like a sentence of death. This is not the army, this is not the navy, and it's not the Marines. This is worse. Here, you are either the best or you die. Hogan laid down the rules with icy precision. No excuses, no weakness. Those who proved themselves would become the highest paid mercenaries in the world. Those who failed would simply vanish into the dirt, forgotten by everyone. For Hogan, this was not training. It was survival of the fittest, carved into flesh and bone. At dawn, the recruits expected drills, weapons practice, maybe war games with blanks. But the jungle had no room for illusions. Their first exercise was simple: run through the corridor of traps, while others hunted them down with live ammunition. The screams echoed through the trees, mixing with gunfire, until silence returned, leaving bodies scattered on the ground. There were no simulations. Every step was real. Every bullet tore through flesh, and it became terrifyingly clear this was not training. It was slaughter disguised as preparation. Among the chaos stood a man who didn't belong there, Benton. He wasn't lured by money, nor by glory. He was dragged into this nightmare when his family became a pawn in the Colonel's deadly game. What no one expected was that Benton wasn't just another victim. He carried within him scars of battles long past. Once a soldier himself, he had been trained by none other than Colonel Hogan. The master had created a weapon years ago, and now that weapon was back on the battlefield. Only this time it wasn't fighting for the Colonel, it was fighting against him. When Hogan realized who Benton truly was, a shadow of recognition crossed his face. This wasn't just another recruit, this was his creation. Benton had been one of Hogan's finest soldiers, forged in blood and fire, molded to be unstoppable. But where Hogan embraced power and money, Benton had chosen a different path: family, peace, a life away from the madness. Now, fate had dragged them back together. The Colonel saw Benton as the ultimate challenge, and Benton saw Hogan as the monster who had unleashed hell on the world. What once was respect had become a duel written in destiny. Night fell, and the jungle turned into a labyrinth of fear. One by one, the mercenaries entered the darkness, confident, armed, and ready. But Benton was waiting. Every trap he set was precise, every ambush lethal. The jungle became his ally, and the mercenaries nothing more than prey. Gunfire lit the night like lightning. Screams echoed, then were swallowed by silence. The hunters had become the hunted. By dawn, the ground was littered with bodies. Hogan's soldiers were no longer an army. They were corpses feeding the earth. With every fallen man, Hogan's fury grew. The colonel wasn't just losing soldiers, he was losing control. To him, this jungle wasn't a battlefield. It was a stage where he proved to the world that his methods worked, that he could create the perfect killers. And Benton's defiance was an insult he could not allow. "He is mine," Hogan declared. No bullet from a recruit, no blade from another mercenary would end this fight. The colonel wanted Benton alive, long enough to look into his eyes before crushing him with his own hands. It was no longer about training. It was personal. As Benton fought to survive in the jungle, Hogan struck where it hurt most: his family. His wife was taken, dragged into the mercenary camp like a prize of war. Her cries echoed in Benton's mind, louder than the gunfire around him. The message was clear: if you want her back, you come to me. Benton wasn't just fighting for survival anymore. He was fighting for blood, for love, for the one thing that still kept him human. The jungle had become a prison, but Hogan had just given Benton the only reason he needed: to burn it all to the ground. The colonel's voice echoed through the radio, cold and mocking. "Your wife's life for yours, Benton? Come to me, and maybe she walks away." It wasn't a negotiation. It was a trap. But Benton knew the game. He had been trained to resist fear, to fight with clarity even when everything was at stake. Still, one truth cut deeper than any blade. This wasn't just a war between soldier and commander. It was a bargain written in blood. If Benton surrendered, his family might die anyway. If he fought, Hogan would unleash every mercenary left against him. Either way, the jungle was about to drown in fire and vengeance. Benton made his choice. He would not surrender. Instead, he turned the jungle into a weapon. Booby traps lined the trees, explosives hidden in the mud, sharp stakes buried beneath the leaves. Every path the mercenaries took led them deeper into his wrath. Gunfire erupted. Explosions shook the ground. The forest itself seemed to roar with Benton's fury. What was once a training camp had become a battlefield soaked in fire and blood. And at its center stood one man, fueled not by orders or greed, but by vengeance and love. The mercenaries weren't facing a soldier anymore. They were facing a storm. As Benton's onslaught tore through the ranks, fear spread like wildfire inside Hogan's camp. Whispers of doubt grew louder, men questioning why they were dying for a colonel's obsession. Some chose to flee into the night, hoping the jungle would be kinder than their commander. Others turned their guns on each other, desperate to prove loyalty and earn Hogan's favor. The mercenary camp crumbled from within. Lies, greed, and fear devoured them faster than Benton's bullets. And watching it all, Hogan stood in silence. His empire was burning, but his eyes held only one target: Benton, because the colonel knew the end of this war would not be decided by armies, but by a duel between two men. The jungle fell silent. No more gunfire, no more screams, only the sound of two men walking toward destiny. Colonel Hogan stood tall, his weapon ready, his eyes burning with rage. Across from him, Benton emerged from the shadows, covered in mud, blood, and determination. "You were my greatest creation," Hogan growled, "and now I'll be your end." Benton's voice was calm, steady as steel. "You made me strong, Colonel, strong enough to destroy you." The air trembled as the two clashed, fists, knives, gunshots echoing through the trees. Each strike carried years of training, years of hatred, years of unfinished war. It was not just a fight for survival. It was a reckoning between master and apprentice. Only one would leave the jungle alive. When the dust settled, the jungle stood silent once more. The ground was soaked in blood, the trees scarred by fire. Colonel Hogan lay defeated, the tyrant consumed by his own obsession. And Benton, battered and broken, stood over the ruins of what once was an army. He found his wife, shaken but alive, and together they walked away from the battlefield that had nearly swallowed them whole. But survival came with a cost. Benton had lost pieces of himself in that jungle, parts of his soul forever buried with the men who had fallen. The world would never know of the war fought in silence. A war hidden beneath the canopy of the jungle. A war where vengeance, love, and survival collided in blood. And though Benton escaped, the scars of the bloodiest war game in history would remain with him forever.